Hello, everybody.
How are you?
Um, Doing pretty good. No complaints. What about yourself?
I'm good, and thank you for rescheduling with me and joining me to kick off tonight's show. I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem. Thanks for having me on.
So, Kaitlin, let's go ahead and begin. Let's talk about how did you got started into becoming a wrestler.
How I got started. Something I was always interested in when I was younger. I was always a fan of wrestling, and I just happened to fall upon it by fluke. I knew somebody who was an independent wrestler, and it was kind of just like a domino effect. My friend got me in touch with their friend, who got me in touch with their friend, and I met some people that did indie shows in my area, and before I knew it, I was starting training at the age of 14. So it was a pretty cool experience.
Wow, I gotta say, just hearing what you said, you had to go through a lot of hurdles in order to get to where you are. I mean, what was it all like? Getting to where you are. Like, were there anything in particular that maybe had you concerned of whether you will be pursuing this, that you wanted to get into this?
Not really. I mean, it was something I always wanted to get into from the time I was about 10 or 11 years old. I knew I would find a way in. I just didn't know anything about how people got involved in professional wrestling. So it was never a doubt in my mind that this is what I was going to become one day. It was just a matter of when and how early I could get started, because a lot of places won't take you for training until you're 18. But, I think my trainers realized I was like a special circumstance and I was really mature for my age, so they let me train with them at the time.
So when you were doing the training and all, you trained with mostly guys, correct?
I trained with all guys, actually. I didn't have a single girl in my class.
So that being said, did the guys that you trained with had any like concern considering you're a female, or they just came up and say, just treat me like everybody else?
Yeah, I think they were more concerned than I was. They didn't. It was like a slippery slope, right? Because they didn't want to hurt me, but then I'd be like, no, come on, just treat me like everybody else. And then they didn't want to baby me either, and if they did baby me, I'd get pissed at them. So, they kind of had to really be careful. And if they weren't, like, going as hard as me as they were on each other, I would give them hell. So, they were more concerned about it than I was. I was like, come on, guys, let's do this.
Well, that's definitely good to know because that's a lot of it's a lot of like you said, it was a slippery slope, and you obviously everybody wants to be treated the same and everything, regardless of your color, your skin, whatever the case may be. And I guess it,
Yeah,
I guess
exactly.
it may have taken some time for the fellas, but eventually, like once you really got wolfed on them, that kind of made them want to step up a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think within the first month after we started like taking bumps and like striking each other and stuff like that, I had everybody's respect, and I was just one of the guys. Like nobody even thought of me any differently after that. It was just getting to that point and, having to prove to them over and over again at first, like, no, really, you can hit me. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not a princess. We're here to train. Let's train.
Well said, Caitlin. Well said. So fast forward, do you remember your first ever wrestling match that you ever had? And if so, who is your opponent or opponents for that matter? And what company did you work for?
I do remember it was, oh God, it was a long time ago. It was in Tennessee, in a town called Maynardville. My opponent's name was Jay Diddy. He was a guy, and I can't remember the name of the company because the company has changed its name several times over the years. So I can't remember what they used to call themselves, or what they call themselves now for that matter. But it was a crowd plant situation, so he was like the local heel, so he just came out and, cut up the town, issued an open challenge to anybody, and I'm proud, and I put my hand up and said, I'll take you on, and, he just was like, oh, you're just some little girl, who cares, you belong in the kitchen, get out of here, you don't want to do this, and then, I slapped him, and then we had a very, very short little match because it was supposed to be believable still that I was a fan. But yeah, it all just took off from there. It was lots of fun.
Wow, you went from training with the guys to having your debut with a guy. So, and I guess the thing is, as far as indie companies, especially for the females, there's not a whole lot of females, maybe near where you live and or near the company that you work for. Do you think it's is that a sign of frustration that sometimes in order to wrestle woman that you would have to travel far, that then there's not much female talent near the companies that you work for?
At first it was definitely like that. When I first started wrestling in 2005, 2006, there was very few women wrestling in my area, and I was wrestling guys a lot. As the years have gone on, I feel like the independent women's scene is really on the rise nowadays. Up until a few years ago, it was very frustrating. But I'd say probably from, like 2010 and forward, I see the number rising every year. More and more women are getting involved in pro wrestling. So, I take that as a good thing, and I try and work with as many girls as I can, as often as I can.
That's a good way to think about it, considering it feels like even though women wrestling has evolved more than ever, mostly through the indie scenes, for time that, like you said, you may have to travel a little farther than usual in order to go up against different talent. And I will say this, there's a lot of talented women wrestlers on the indie scene more than ever, making a name for themselves and want to show that they are just as good as the guys and things like that. Do you feel that with all the years of women's wrestling that has evolved, that I truly believe that they earned the respect of a lot of male fans and male wrestlers? I mean, there always will be guys that don't think otherwise. Well, will think otherwise for that matter. But do you feel like that at this time that woman wrestlers, woman companies for that matter has earned the respect for a lot of fans out there?
Yeah, honestly, I do. There's been times where I've gone into a locker room and I've felt, very disrespected by people there because, I feel like they were just like, oh, who cares about you or your match? You're just the popcorn match or the bathroom break. But I haven't felt that way in a really long time, and that's a very encouraging feeling to know that I can pretty much go anywhere now, or everywhere that I do go, I feel like people know me and they know what I'm capable of, and nobody just writes me off anymore.
And let's also keep that in mind for the because we all know there are skeptics, there are naysayers, there are haters. This is a trained wrestler that I'm on the phone with, and if you don't think what she does is legit, step in the ring with her for, I say, a good 5 minutes, and
not
even, and she'll do the same moves to you like she does to an actual trained talent, and we'll see if you still think the way that you think. That's just it's just a never. In the world that we live in, you're not going to please everybody, but as long as there are some reasonable people that get it, that understands the content, that then I guess that's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly. That's all I ask for. I'm not too picky or too high maintenance. You know, all I'm asking for is respect, and I don't think that's too hard to give. So I give it, and I receive it, and that's the way I work.
Well, Miss Diamond, let me just say that as a male and as a fan of professional wrestling, I respect you.
Well, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So, well, I also want to ask you is, do you have any favorite moments in your career, like whether it's a championship that you've won or a rivalry or a match, anything that stands out to you that, that stood out to you the most, that you like the most in your wrestling career?
Yeah, a few things. Definitely, last month I was on WWE TV as a Rosebud with Adam Rose. So that was huge for me. That's something I'll always look back on and be proud of myself for at least saying, you know, I was on Raw and I was on SmackDown. Not a lot of wrestlers can say that. And I did have a very long, storied history and rivalry with one of my best friends in pro wrestling. Her name's Jody DeMilo. And, you know, we wrestle each other up and down Ontario, all over the place for years. And in Hamilton, Ontario, in 2012, I believe it was April, her and I had a ladder match. And we beat the hell out of each other. And it's still one of my favorite matches to this day. I don't know if I could ever go through something like that again, but at that moment in time, it was exactly what it needed to be.
Wow, a ladder match? That's wow. I mean, I'm sure to this day you still got some scars and marks on your body from that particular match, because that's the type of match that doesn't make you forget. Like every time you look at your body and like, oh, I got that from the ladder match. Damn.
Yeah, exactly. We turned a lot of heads with that match. A lot of people were like pretty much said, you know, you guys weren't the main event on the show. You were on second last, but the main event couldn't follow that match. So, you know, we got a standing ovation from the locker room when we returned after our match, and that's just like a moment I won't ever forget.
And I was just gonna ask you about the WWE appearance, and you beat me to it. And I did see you on TV. You look great.
Thank you.
And Adam Rose, he's definitely have made a name for himself as far as a character is concerned. He's getting a big reaction, and you joined a list of fellow indie wrestlers that have been a quote-unquote rosebud, and some I have interviewed before with the likes of Casey Carlisle, Mary Elizabeth Monroe. There's a wrestler from Portugal named Shauna. She was a rosebud as well. And wow, what I want to ask you is it's one thing to perform on indie shows in front of your fellow your local fans out there, but you're in WWE, you're on the grand stage, you're in front of thousands in attendance and millions watching at home, and I'm sure that experience was so overwhelming, knowing that you're on national television. Like, not only your local people get to see you, but the whole world gets to see you. Like, what was that feeling like?
Oh my God, it was crazy. A dream come true. Like I said, I've been a wrestling fan and a WWE fan basically since I was a small kid. It was just, you're right, it was overwhelming. It was nice that I got to do it 4 nights in a row, and the first 2 nights weren't TV, they were house shows. So I got to go out on the stage and just look around and let that big breath of air out, wow, this is crazy. So I got that out of my system 2 nights before we had to go live on Raw. So, it was still overwhelming when I did Raw, but at least I felt like I was a little bit more prepared when I did Raw and SmackDown, because I had basically 2 nights of practice before that. So that was very beneficial to me.
And I bet your family was very excited. They're like, oh my God, that's my baby on TV. She look amazing. I mean, wow.
Yeah, I mean, my family doesn't watch wrestling. They support me in the fact that I wrestle, but they didn't watch it. I had to like come home and show it to them on YouTube. But they were still pretty
Oh,
excited for me and stuff like that. But they weren't quite as over the top like you're describing.
I mean, anytime you could be on television, I mean, if I was your parent, hell, I'll be excited. I'm just saying. Uh, well,
Yeah, I mean, I was on TV for like maybe 45 seconds. So, and you have to kind of like squint to see me. So it's not like I had a match or anything like that. If I had a match, I think they'd probably trip out. But, where I have to kind of like pause the screen and be like, look, there I am. Because if they blink, they might miss me. It's exciting for me. And, people that are involved in wrestling understand how big of a deal that is. But to a casual person that doesn't watch wrestling, they're like, oh, that's really cool, but they don't really understand the importance of it.
okay, you definitely have a point there. I guess if you was in a match, then they probably would be a little bit more excited. But I mean, hey, 45 seconds, you make the most of it. I will say that, and you definitely did that. Um, Now you're from Canada, and we all know the history of Canadian-born wrestlers have become household names in the wrestling world with the likes of the Hearts and Edge and Christian and Jericho and Trish Stratus, Angelina Love. The list goes on and on. And I feel like Canadian wrestlers have, dare I say, have made a bigger name for themselves than just as much as American wrestlers have throughout the last 2 decades or so. I mean, what's your take on the Canadian wrestlers that's come out and have made a name for themselves and just the impact they've made in the wrestling industry?
I think it's awesome. It definitely gives you hope when you see people from your home country succeeding on the international level like that, like in WWE. It was always cool seeing the Hearts on TV when I was super young. But really, they were the first people that I at least remember being alive for that had like that mainstream exposure. And you're right, like through the Attitude Era, there were so many more that made it to that level. Like my absolute favorite wrestlers of all time, still to this day, whether they're on TV or not, are Chris Jericho, like for men, and Trish Stratus as far as women go. And they both just happen to be Canadian. Now, I don't like them the most because they're Canadian. They're just my favorites, and they do happen to be Canadian, which is just a coincidence, I swear to God.
Hey, it's understandable. Anytime when you get a chance to see someone for your neck of the woods, I mean that's a great feeling. Like wow, these people came from a different country, came into America, and not only made a name for themselves but dominated, you know, the WWE, and it's saying something. I will say there is one Canadian wrestler I believe have a bright future if WWE really believes and get this guy an opportunity. He's wrestling for NXT right now. Sami Zayn. I'm definitely a fan.
Yeah.
I'm definitely a fan of his. He's had some stellar matches against Cesaro. It's been quite a rivalry. I'm like what NXT has done with him, and hopefully he will get into the main roster in the future. And we definitely have to wait and see how he continues to evolve in his career. So, Kaitlin, my last question. Why don't you go ahead and promote your links and promote your upcoming shows that you would like to let people know of, and just go ahead and promote your show, upcoming shows, and promote your links.
Perfect. Okay, so you can follow me on Twitter at Kaitlin Diemond, and my name is spelled KaitlinDiemond as well. You can catch me on Facebook, facebook.com/Kaitlin.Diemond, and those are the only social media platforms that I use. My upcoming events this weekend, July 27th, I will be in St. Catharines, Ontario for Crossfire Wrestling. August 2nd, I will be in Oshawa, Ontario for Great Canadian Wrestling, GCW. And August the 4th, I am leaving for a tour of Northern Ontario, Northern Quebec. You definitely aren't listening from way out there in the middle of nowhere. But I'll be touring many different cities. I'll probably be doing between 8 to 10 shows. And then I'll be back in Montreal, Quebec on August the 16th for NCW Femme Fatales. And that's where I'll stop.
Well, Kaitlin, it was great chatting with you, and I want to say thank you again for being on the show, kicking off the show with me. Continued success. And again, thank you for your time. I truly appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Thank you guys again for having me on, and anytime you want to have me back, just let me know. I'd be happy to come back.
Oh, we definitely going to have you back. That's for sure. So that being said, you have a great night.
All right, you too. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
That was Kaitlin Diemond joining me here on Triple Threat Wrestling Radio. And I'm about to go for one diamond